Morning. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. If you've watched the channel for a while, you will know I bought this. This is a SideQuest drive. And the front of it's yellow. So today I've decided I'm going to have a go at sorting that yellowness out. But before we get going, a couple of parish notices. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe icon. If you want to be notified when this sort of content hits the channel, hit the bell icon. Consider supporting the creation of videos. The Patreon address is down the bottom, as is the Instagram and Facebook feeds. Now back to the video. If you have been watching the channel for a while, you will know that some years ago I acquired an S750, and the S750 is away in storage at the moment. However, in the pieces I picked up the other day, including this, was this thing, which is the drive for the S750. But there is a story behind this, and the story is quite simple. Some time ago, I put a shout out on the channel saying I've bought this media for my Roland S750, and I thought it was compact disc when I originally put the bidding in for it, and it wasn't. It was actually a SideQuest drive, and you guys told me it was a SideQuest drive. And I should have really known it was a SideQuest drive, because when I was a junior consultant learning my trade many, many years ago, I used to work in the media industry. And one of the things we did in the media industry was when the editors had finished editing copy, they used to store the page layouts on SideQuest drives, and then they used to bike them round to the publisher, from the publisher to the printers on the back of with a courier. And they used to use these SideQuest drives because that was the media they used to use. So they used to go backwards and forwards between the publisher and the printer. So I really should have known what that was, but it's such a long time since I used one. Anyway, this thing arrived, and most of this is metal. Just needed a good clean, which I gave it a good clean. But this front piece is plastic, and it's yellowed over time. This type of plastic just tends to sort of yellow over time, and it needs a process called retrobriting. Now, if you've watched someone like the 8-bit guy, you'll see this guy, the 8-bit guy retrobrite stuff all the time. He lives in Texas. Texas gets lots of sun. Okay, I live in England. England doesn't get lots of sun. We get lots of rain, but not lots of sun. However, at the moment, we're in the middle of sort of a fairly warm period. And what I did consider was when I lived in my old place, I did consider trying to do it there. And so I bought most of the equipment for doing this, actually last year. In fact, probably over a year ago. And I didn't do it. And I didn't do it because where I lived didn't get the sun all day. So you'd only get the sun for part of the day. And it really needs a good 7-8 hours in the sun for this to work properly, apparently. And the second thing is that I did think about doing it in the communal areas, but I thought, if a dog comes along or some children come along and they start, playing with water was full of peroxide, then that's not going to be quite a good idea. So I decided not to do it. However, in the joint house, I have a back garden that it pretty much catches the sun all day long. So, and as we're in the middle of a heat wave at the moment in the UK, I thought now is the time to give this a go. So here goes. I'm going to do retrobriting on this SideQuest drive bezel to get it up to looking a nice colour, the same colour as the case with a bit of luck. And in order to do that, I've got to clear all this stuff away off the bench so I can get into this and get this to pieces. And then we need to get it into a bowl of peroxide so that we can actually get the process going in the sun. Let's give this a go, shall we? So, first thing we need to do, get inside this thing. Seems to be several screws on the back here. 1, 2, 3, 4 will probably get the case off. And it seems that this front piece is just held on by a series of clips, which we just need a flat blade to pry out. part of me thinks that that is actually glued in place. I don't think that's movable. There you go. Anyway, that's the bezel. There's the front plastic piece off, ready to go in the Retrobrite tub. Now we get to try the peroxide. So this is a bottle of peroxide bought from a local vendor in the UK called Sally. It's hopefully the right stuff. It's 9% by volume, which is what the 8-bit guy always recommends. So here we go. Okay, the great experiment. There's the piece of plastic. Disappeared into the solution. Let's see what happens. End of day 2, and I thought I'd give you an update on how this is getting on. So there is the piece, and I'm going to move right up to the camera so you can see it. Now, that kind of is the colour it should be, and if I do that, you can still see it's got a yellowy tinge to it. But this yellow colour is a lot better than it was, so it is gradually working. I think the problem is that when I see Dave the 8-bit guy do this, he's in Texas. Texas has far more intense sun than we do in Blighty, which is probably why it's taken a little bit longer to do. So that's been in pretty much the solution for the last 2 days, and it has got to that stage. Now, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and accelerate this, and I'll show you what I'm going to do in a minute off camera. Well, I'll move the camera so you can see it, if you get the drift. Because the catalyst for this is UV. So obviously, there's no UV in here. This is the tub of solution. I'll show you what I'm going to do. You get me, but you get my belly while I'm doing this, because in order to get the camera, and I'm not using multi-cameras at the moment. This is the tub of solution. This thing has been in this for 2 days. It's going to put it back in there like so. So this stuff is hydrogen peroxide effectively, so you don't want to really get it on your fingers. So I've put me yellow gloves on, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this over so it's the right way up and it's not floating. Just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these, which is what we used to call, when I was DJing, a black light, commonly known as a UV light, and I'm going to put that UV light over the top of the box, and I'm going to leave it on overnight. Just needs a turn. So, a couple of important safety points here. Firstly, water and electricity aren't particularly good friends. This workshop is on a trip, an RCD breaker, so if something happens to this, then theoretically, if it somehow managed to drop into the tub, then the RCD would trip and everything should be fine. That's the first thing. Second thing is, don't go playing with black lights. Not particularly good for you. So I'm going to stop filming now. I'm going to shut all the lights off. I'm going to let it go dark, and I'm going to leave this thing on, and we'll come back tomorrow and see what happens. So here we are, day 3, following an overnight UV bath. And this is not a particularly powerful UV tube, so I know that you can buy much more powerful tubes, but this is all that's sort of kind of hanging around here from one of the trips to the storage unit. But let me bring this up to the camera, about there. So that is kind of the original colour. It's very difficult to see in this light, actually, and you can see that the colour is starting. Let's see if I can bring it back a bit, see if that makes any difference. It is actually very difficult. It's not there yet, so that's kind of the original colour on the underside. And if I go that way, you can see it's still discoloured, but the discoloration is actually far less pronounced now. It is definitely having the desired effect. One problem we have today is it's kind of a bit overcast. I am actually going to put it back outside, and I'm going to leave it immersed in the solution all day. Now, what I'm not sure about is whether hydrogen peroxide, which is the stuff that's in this tank, actually has a shelf life. So this hydrogen peroxide has been in this bath now for 3 days, and whether it starts to lose its effect after a couple of days, or I'm not sure. The reality is I've got some more hydrogen peroxide on order, because if this works well, and I think the answer is this is working, I've got some other parts that I want to retrobrite to bring those particular synthesizers back to their glory, if you like. So I will be doing some more retrobriting in the future. But let's leave this out. Today is, at the moment, it's very overcast out there. There's not an awful lot of sun. It's warm, but there's not an awful lot of sun. But tomorrow, apparently, we're going to have a lot of sun. So hopefully, with a bit of luck, we should be able to finish this by the weekend. So it's Friday morning. This thing has been going for quite a few days. But we are seeing visible proof that this actually does work, and it can work in England. Excuse my hair. So I'm not sure this really comes across on camera quite well, but that end there, that's sort of the original colour, but that end there was less coloured, or less discoloured, compared with that surface. That surface there. Now, again, and I'm sure the lighting really does this justice, but I can tell you now that between the two, there is still a little way to go on this bar here, and on the top as well. But it is now very difficult to actually see the discoloration straight off bat. So, retrobriting in the UK with the UK sun does kind of work, but it does take a long time to do it. So I'm going to leave this. Apparently today is going to be the hottest day of the year so far, so I'm going to put this out in the garden again, and hopefully by tomorrow this will now be completely the right colour. One hopes anyway. Some months ago, it seems like months ago, it was only about 4 weeks ago, when we had really hot weather in the UK, I decided to try and copy Dave Murray, the 8-bit guy, in terms of doing a Retrobrite experiment. And this is the outcome of it. Now, unfortunately, I've tried a couple of times now to really show this off. The control end is that end, because that end was pretty much clean, because obviously that had been away from the sun. But the rest of it was really, really dark and faded yellow. And as you can see, there's not a lot of contrast now between what was faded yellow, so the whole of this front was quite darkened, and the control surfaces. Now, I don't know whether this is really coming out on video, but if I turn it around that way there, I don't know whether you can see this. There is a little bit of buffering around there where it's slightly lighter in the center and darker around the edge. But to be honest, it is so minuscule that I think we have achieved what we have achieved. Now, a couple of things that have come out of this experiment. Number one, I don't live in Texas. I live on the south coast of the UK. Okay, there is definitely a big temperature difference between where Dave Murray lives in Texas and here, especially sun intensity. So we don't get the same amount of UV they get over there, which has meant that his way of doing retrobriting is effectively to fill a big bowl up, and you will have seen that on the video up to this point, put the peroxide in, and then put the object into the bowl and leave it. Now, he tends to leave it for most of the day. He starts off early morning, fills up the crate, and it has to be a see-through crate. Okay, so it has to be a plastic see-through crate so that you get the maximum amount of light into the crate. Puts the peroxide in, fills it up with water. It gets up to about 90 degrees in the sun in Texas. This thing in here bubbles away for 10 hours or so, and he comes out pretty much with the finished article. If not, he repeats the exercise the following day, fills it up again, peroxide again, job done. It doesn't work very well in the UK. What I found was the best thing to do in the UK was actually to use some of these. Now, these are leftover remnants from when I used to be a DJ many years ago. These are black lights. Okay, and I've got a couple of these, and effectively what I did was I actually filled a bowl up on the bench in here with some UV black lights and left it for a couple of days, and I found that actually worked much better on this thing than actually leaving it in the garden in the sun. So I changed the way I did it, and actually I got better results because I took it out of the bowl and put it into here. The other thing I found about this is I've bought peroxide. Hopefully I'm going to open the right one here. This is for the next experiment. So there you go. So there's the peroxide I've bought. Okay, that is 10%. Yeah, it's the strongest stuff I pretty much can buy in the UK. And you keep it in its tube like that to stop it reacting with light, hence the reason why it's stored in there. And what I found is putting this in a smaller bowl rather than a bigger bowl with that amount of peroxide kind of works really well, and I left it like that for a couple of days, and you should be seeing pictures of that up here. And that worked far better than sticking it outside. So now really all that's left for me to do with this is to put it back together. I'm going to do that now. And I'm also going to do it off camera because you saw me take it to pieces. Case fitted. And as you can see, the plastic to the case, whereas it was a remarked difference to the colour of the case, it's now not that far off. So I think we can class this as a success. spent enough time on this video anyway. So I shall put this video together. I shall show you guys what I did, and hopefully somebody else who wants to have a go at this can have a go. I've got another piece I'm going to do a Retrobrite on, so we'll see how that goes. Until next time, thanks for watching. Live long and prosper. Catch you later. Bye bye.